Hello everyone, welcome to Fablehaven Age of Wonders 4, The Eldritch Realms Reveal. Yes, the fourth DLC/expansion is arriving on June 18th, and I'll be going over its first dev diary and things that I noticed in the first dev stream, to which you can find links in the description down below if you'd like to read this for yourself or watch the dev stream for yourself. So this first half will be all about the dev diary, and the second half will be all about the things I noticed in the dev stream, which were quite a lot. Let's get started. Dear Gaudia, we are excited to announce that the Eldritch Realms expansion and the free Mystic update are going to be available in less than a month on June 18th. Yes, indeed, the webpage is up as well if you want to look at that. You can find below the Eldritch Realms key art reveal, it's beautiful, feature highlights, first look stream, and the first dev diary about the Umbral Abyss. So here's the little teaser, which is basically just showing off this wonderful art. The Age of Wonders 4 Eldritch Realms key features: the new map layer, the Umbral Abyss, new tactical combat maps, unique locations to explore, and new independent factions of Umbral Dwellers await for players who can withstand the hazardous environments. New ruler type: ancient beings of terrible power. The Eldritch Sovereigns have been corrupted by the Umbral Abyss and possess a unique Thrall spellcasting mechanic. Choose your path as an Eldritch Sovereign ruler and decide between dominating your foes, manipulating the flesh, or wild, chaotic magic. Don't worry, they revealed a little bit about this in the dev stream, and I'll talk a lot about it in the second half. 3 new tomes. Tighten your grasp with the Tome of the Tentacle. Turn your enemy's strength to weakness with the Tome of Corruption, or drive back the darkness using the Tome of Cleansing Flame. New event system. Many crises that threaten all rulers at once in the Cosmic Happenings. A series of events with unique tactical maps, units and mechanics, and powerful rewards. 2 new forms. Swarm into battle as a faction of insects, or lead the return of the Sirens from the Age of Wonders past. I believe it's from Age of Wonders Shadow Magic. 2 new story realms return to Athla and come to its defense in epic clashes that will determine the fate of the world. I haven't done a whole lot of story stuff, so hopefully that's cool. And so much more. 2 new mounts, 3 new realm traits, 2 new realm templates, 5 new pre-made rulers, 6 new music tracks, and a gloomy, unsettling new interface skin. All await you in the Eldritch Realms. Alongside Eldritch Realms, all Age of Wonders 4 players will receive a free content update on June 18th. The Mystic update will include a new feature such as randomized realms with hidden traits, new Pantheon content, and an expanded rework of the Mystic culture. Full details of these free additions will be shared in the game's patch notes shortly before launch, and were also shared, well, at least the Mystic culture bit, were shared in the dev stream. So, the Umbral Abyss Dev Diary. Here we go. Hi, Crusaders and Eldritch Sovereigns. I'm Bass, a game designer at Triumph Studio. I hope I didn't butcher your name. We have been hard at work, chanting incantations and plunging esoteric daggers for summoning something both wondrous and horrific. I am talking, of course, about the upcoming new expansion for Age of Wonders 4 Eldritch Realms, which is coming on June 18th, which is soon, TM. This expansion is all about Lovecraftian monstrosities, fiery Templars who defy them, and the opening of an old wound in the Age of Wonders universe as a new plane awakens and seeks to corrupt all. I'm happy to present to you with that very last feature, worthy of the name Eldritch Realms. Behold, the Umbral Abyss. Disclaimer: you must be at least halfling size to enter. Keep arms, legs, and extra appendages within the Umbral gates at all times. Look at it. The beautiful monstrosities. They're glorious. The Umbral Abyss is the domain of Urath, and home to the Umbral Demons, a new type of creature in Eldritch Realms. The Umbral Abyss exists beyond both the Astral Sea and the Void, but is seeking to manifest and corrupt the realms. In this expansion story realms, you will be able to discover more of the origins of the Umbral Abyss and its exotic denizens. As some longtime fans will recognize, it bears many resemblances to the Shadow Realm in Age of Wonders Shadow Magic. The Umbral Abyss is the evolution of the Shadow Realm into something new, yet familiar. And they mentioned that they renamed it from Shadow Realm because they didn't want it to be linked to the Shadow Affinity. So, Umbral Abyss it is. The goal of the Umbral Abyss was to be a terrifying place where players could embark on high-risk, high-reward ventures that felt like little dungeon crawls. Furthermore, it needed to provide a new way to traverse the world map like the Shadow Realm did in Shadow Magic, and lastly, we wanted to present a creeping threat and corruption upon the rest of the realm. That is magnificent art. So much thumbnail material. The resulting Umbral Abyss we created exists as a new optional world map layer enabled via a realm trait. It features a number of handcrafted Eldritch islands floating in a void rather than fully generated landscapes. The islands you see are randomly placed every time so that you will find new ones each playthrough. Each island is filled with wonder and rewards in the form of exotic locations and treasures, but it is also full of peril and danger with patrolling umbral demons and the corrupting gloom. Yeah, look at that. Little infestation there. Some nodes I don't recognize. Let's begin by looking at the Umbral Abyss. By looking how the Umbral Abyss can be traversed by our mere mortal troops. In a realm with the Umbral Abyss enabled, many portals are spread across every world map layer. These portals are called Umbral Gates and connect the Umbral Abyss to the surface and underground. Unlike underground passages, their position in one world map layer does not correspond to their position in the Umbral Abyss. This means Umbral Islands can form many shortcuts, bridging large distances within the surface and underground. Some Umbral Islands were designed with this in mind, creating small transport hubs with many Umbral Gates close to one another. Okay. Symbols, different. Traversing in the Umbral Abyss takes time. Its terrain has a higher move cost than on the surface, and vision range is decreased, making exploring the Umbral Abyss a lot more intimate. But traveling in the Umbral Abyss is not without danger. Do you think advanced logistics still works in the Abyss? It should, right? One of the first things you may notice as you enter the Umbral Abyss is your unit slowly losing health. While in the Umbral Abyss or in Gloom terrain, your units will be suffering from Umbral Malady, lowering their vision range and depleting their hit points every turn in the world map. This is Age of Wonders 4 version of Shadow Sickness from Age of Wonders Shadow Magic, and represents the ever-growing madness and casualties plaguing your troops as they traverse the hostile Gloom terrain surrounding the Umbral Abyss. It also lowers city stability of any city with Gloom terrain in their domain, as the population finds their minds filled with nothing but gloom and doom. You can see the red there. Furthermore, powerful Umbral demons guard treasures and patrol the shadows, eager to snuff out the life of your troops. Without a way to regenerate in the Umbral Abyss, your armies may need to escape to recuperate before going further. The Umbral Abyss is also home to Umbral nest infestations and Umbral dwellings, more on those later, which spread the Abyss's corrupting influence out from Umbral Gates, turning the surrounding landscapes in the surface and underground to gloom. It's green. Ish? Okay, I like the tentacles. If ignored for too long, the creeping gloom will affect your armies and your cities without having even entered the Umbral Abyss, forcing players to crusade inwards and take out the source of corruption. Your troops will have to weather the gloom, though while seeking their target. There are ways to ward off Umbral Malady, one of which is also how you get to reap your hard-fought rewards. Let us talk about beacons of light and sanctuary outposts. Within the Umbral Abyss, you cannot build regular outposts, found cities, or annex provinces via Umbral Gates. Boo! Instead, you'll need to build sanctuary outposts, and for that, you'll have to find a beacon of light. How long do you think it'll be before someone mods the ability to expand into the Umbral Abyss? I'll give it 3 days, 4 days, a week. We'll go a week. Beacons of light are special locations in the Umbral Abyss where holy light still shines. They also appear when destroying Umbral nest infestations in the Umbral Abyss. Only on these locations can you build sanctuary outposts. This is way more effective than a regular outpost. It generates gold, mana, and knowledge. Could you share that skill with the regular outpost, please? Tired of paying 10 gold upkeep. Sanctuary outposts are, as the name suggests, a type of outpost. They cannot be converted into cities. Who would want to live in a tentacle-riddled hellscape? Don't answer that. You nipped the joke in the bud. And cannot build the watchtower or work camp upgrades. Instead, they themselves already grant a plethora of resources. They also allow you to annex up to 2 provinces adjacent to them within the Umbral Abyss, granting your empire access to those powerful nodes and magical materials nearby. Finally, they are also a sure way to grant your units immunity to Umbral Malady while within their domain. This lets your armies recuperate before heading out again into the great unknown. You think this can be boosted with, what's it called, natural regeneration? the Nature Imperium talent for super regeneration. To make the trip to the Umbral Abyss and building Sanctuary Outposts worthwhile, we created new exotic locations that grant powerful benefits, either by being picked up, being visited, or being annexed. Let us take a look at some of them. First off, the Umbral Abyss will feature 2 new base nodes which can be found often. Let us show one of them, the Monolith nodes. The Monoliths grant 30 knowledge. This is triple that of what normal nodes normally grant on the surface and the underground, and is only one of the base nodes that grant knowledge. Very impressive. 30, it's a lot. There are, although small in my, what was my record? Like 2,400 knowledge? Good, it's going to get higher now. There are also powerful new pickups that can be found in the Umbral Abyss. One of my personal favorites we created is the Tome Fragment, granting a random spell from any of the existing tomes in the game that you have not researched yet or are not researching currently. Question: this exists already in the... oh, what's it called? The Golden Wonder? The Vaults? Will this accelerate your research? Because if so, speedrunning to tier 5? Sounds fun to me. The other 2, which you'll have to discover for yourself, grant an immense amount of various resources. All of these are hidden away in nooks and hard-to-reach locations in the Umbral Abyss, rewarding players who go off the beaten path every now and again. Think of the little floaty thing. They did show us in the dev stream. It's called an abductor. It abducts. Shocker. A new world map layer also calls for a new magic material. Behold the Void Stones. These otherworldly orbs help you communicate with umbral dwellings. There is that word again. I guess I have some explaining to do later about those, but as is typical with Lovecraftian content, it will, for now, remain unknowable. So grant 30 mana when annexed, grant +2 allegiance with discovered umbral dwellings per turn, allows the forging of miscellaneous items that grant immunity to umbral malady in the item forge. Okay. They are also unique as they form their own set bonus. Having 3 of them unlocks this bonus, allowing you to extract knowledge from your vassals and umbral dwellings. Really? What are these things? So, umbral dwellings with an Eldritch Pact grant +30 knowledge, and vassals grant +10 knowledge. Oh, the vassal build grows. It grows. Lastly, I'd like to show something you guys have been asking for more. Let us introduce some new visit sites that can be found in the Umbral Abyss. Back in older Age of Wonders games, visit sites allowed armies to gain temporary buffs for future battles, explore the world faster, or heal. We've been wanting to create more of them for a while for Age of Wonders 4. The Umbral Abyss is the first place where you'll find some of these new ones. Each one was designed to grant both benefits in combat and in the world map. Let us take the Soothing Shrine, for example. A relic of light is a rare but welcome sight in a place full of darkness. Visiting it heals your units for 50% and grants them faithful and zeal for 5 turns, letting them continue their journey in the Umbral Abyss with renewed vigor. What if you're already faithful or zeal? Then what? Be cool if it granted you strength. Possibly OP, but cool. So 5 gold when annexed, all units in army visiting the site will gain the following for 5 turns: faithful, zeal, and heal 50% HP. Upon being visited, the site cannot be visited again for 5 turns. There was stuff like this in, well, they mentioned older titles, but the one I have the most experience with is Age of Wonders 3. And there were these little plants I think you could walk on to reset your movement, but the really annoying one was the lucky clovers. You could step on it and give your whole stack lucky, which in Age of Wonders 3 was like a 10 or 15% chance to just ignore damage. You can imagine how infuriating that. And it made like a little animation and sound like a whoo when it procced, and ugh. Okay. Let's not think about that. There's actually a mod, because the halflings in that game have it by default. They all have lucky as like just a racial feature. And there was a mod that removed that and replaced it with Well Fed, I think it was called. And it just gave them extra health. I cannot play against a halfling without it. It was infuriating. But let's say all those exotic rewards are not enough. What if you'd want to coexist with the gloom and the umbral demons? Accept Urath as your true master, and let corruption willingly take hold of the world. See, 2 of these 3 things sounds fun. But I don't know about a true master. I am my own master. Well, my diabolical friends, as an avid evil player myself, high five, I'm happy to say we considered this as a possible route for your empire to take. The first step down this path is to meet an umbral dwelling. At last, the forbidden word's meaning shall be revealed unto you. Can we get one of them? This floating guy? Umbral dwellings are part of a new type of content called dwellings, taking inspiration from Age of Wonders 3 and Planetfall dwellings. Age of Wonders 3 dwellings were so good. They were incredible. They were like free cities, but better. We wanted to make something similar to a free city, an independent faction in which you can wage war or enter diplomacy. But they are ruled by fantastical types of wildlife rather than the regular races. I'll explain the Age of Wonders 3 one if they don't. Umbral dwellings are our first type of dwelling in Age of Wonders 4 and are ruled by umbral demons. They can only be found in the umbral abyss, but can extend their domains through umbral gates to the surface and the underground. Like corrupting tendrils, they will transform everything within and adjacent to their domain to gloom terrain. They are pretty problematic neighbors to have, but you can try to befriend them. So the dwellings in Age of Wonders 3, there are what? Naga, giants, dragons. Are there Archon dwellings, or is it just... And basically, you would enter kind of like at the Free Cities, you try to befriend them, but then you could absorb them, and you would basically have like the Naga faction as a sub-faction inside of your faction, and it was so cool. It could really change up campaigns depending on how lucky you get. To raise allegiance with umbral dwellings, you'll have to make continuous offerings to them. They are not swayed by trinkets like whispering stones and sweetened words. Evil. Diplomacy with umbral dwellings involves sacrifice. Upon first meeting them, they will make their first demand and you'll have to pick your poison. While not at war, they will continuously demand more sacrifices in the future. If you are eager to please them, you can even freely offer another sacrifice through boosting relations, which normally costs influence. You mean Imperium? Sacrifices can include giving various resources you have available, but every now and then, they will want a more delicate treat. They will demand you declare war on one of your allies or vassals. Will you betray your former friends for a pact with these evil beings? A sacrifice of flesh is population? That's pretty evil. Each sacrifice given will grant a relationship bonus with them, which raises allegiance gained per turn. It will also count as an evil act and naturally steer you towards evil alignment. Denying them of their demands will instead see your allegiance with them go down until another sacrifice is made or war is declared. Hey, look. This could be... I guess it's technically a good act to go to war on a major declaration, right? I think that gives you good boy points. But it's a good boy point thing to fight them. The masters of the umbral dwelling are fickle, and their appetite will change with each sacrifice you have made. You may not always be able to satisfy them. But don't worry, there's always the next demand from these evil overlords. Okay. You can offer nothing. I'm sure they'd like that. Upon reaching the final diplomatic state with an umbral dwelling, called an Eldritch Pact, you will gain access to war coordination. And Rally of the Lieges, just like with free cities. This will include being able to recruit umbral demons into your retinue. Furthermore, you will gain access to forbidden knowledge in the form of special research skills, which can be bought from the umbral dwelling you have a pact with via the cooperation screen. You can recruit them, maybe. I guess it depends what's offered in the Rally of Lieges. So in the dev stream, they mentioned there are 3 new tomes, but there's technically 4. And I guess these are the technically 4 tomes. That would make sense. That would make sense. Once again, I must ask the question. Do these spells, boost you along your research? Would it be worth exchanging Imperium? One of these are a conduit. Would it be worth exchanging Imperium to basically speed up research? I think it would be. especially this amount of Imperium. Now, Umbral Flesh is expensive. Each of these skills were designed to benefit from Gloom and the Umbral Abyss, as well as being able to spread it yourself. Now be able to plunge the realm itself into darkness for the glory of Urath. So Umbral Flesh is a transformation, it looks like. Gives the target race blessings of the Umbral Abyss, granting them Umbral Malady immunity. While in Gloom terrain, unit gains plus 10 morale and plus 12 hit points per turn on the world map. Cities of the race gain plus 2 knowledge income for each province with Gloom terrain, ignores city stability penalties from Gloom terrain, and hero units gain Gloom Shepherd. I can't highlight it, I keep trying to. Of course, if that doesn't strike your fancy, destroying all Umbral nests and Umbral dwellings within the Umbral Abyss will ensure the end of the Umbral Abyss corrupting the realm with gloom. But destroying Umbral dwellings is no easy task. Like with cities, they must be besieged, which is naturally made more difficult by your troops suffering from Umbral Malady every turn they spend sieging. Succeed in destroying an Umbral dwelling and you'll be rewarded with a hefty sum of Imperium, a beacon of light, good alignment, and its domain will vanish, stopping gloom from growing ever further. So that's a lot of stuff to be found in the Umbral Abyss, and it's not even everything. We're all very excited to hear your stories of how you dared to enter and how you will return. Will you be a crusader of light, venturing in and cleansing the seeds of corruption before they can germinate? Will you be an opportunist, capturing and harvesting the many riches that the Umbral Abyss holds? Or will you be a warlock of darkness, siding with the Umbral demons and covering the entire realm in gloom while your empire flourishes? Whatever you choose, the Umbral Abyss will not hold back its horrors and wonders. You'll be unleashed with Eldritch Realms expansion on the 18th of June. But that is not all included. Keep those Eldritch portals open to receive another unholy vision Dev Diary next week. For now, I hope you enjoyed this peek into the unknowable future. I believe they mentioned the Dev Diary next week is about the 3 new tomes of magic. So that's the Umbral Abyss, a new map layer, like the Underground, but very, very different. A lot to absorb, but could be fun. This is an optional realm trait as well, I believe. So if this is too much for you, or if you don't care about decaying away at the drop of a hat, I'm trying to find where they said that, you don't have to turn it on. Just chill. I am possibly a little worried about performance if you're playing because usually I play with 9 Gautier, so the max amount, very large map. Slightly concerned how it would work with 3 different layers, but hopefully I am pleasantly surprised. That would be grand. So time for part 2 of this video, where I'm going to go over everything I saw in the dev stream that was specifically not talked about in this, but let's get to it. So a lot of these changes are about the Mystic update, and it is appropriately named because one of the biggest changes coming in the pre-update is the Mystic subculture. There are now 3 subcultures for the Mystic culture, and while not a whole lot has changed, they do encourage different types of playstyle. So first up is Attunement, with new Astral Attunement that gives elemental damage based on the affinity of the cast spell. So not entirely random, but this is very much like the original Mystic. If you like the way Mystic played, this is it. This is for you. Astral Echoes have also been changed, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. So Potential is Shadow, which makes us a 1 Astral, 1 Shadow dual affinity culture. They overcast and exploit spells. The first spell in combat is always overcharged for bonuses based on the type of spell. You can see it on the screen, hopefully, future Fabe. After casting a spell several times, Arcane Inspiration will become available for that spell, and it can then be exploited for some bonuses they didn't go into, but the spell will become unavailable while it is being exploited. There's also now Dissonance, where units will inflict this new debuff, and the debuff deals 4 lightning damage per stack, stacking up to 5 times, whenever an overcharged spell is cast. And this subculture is the only one that does not use Astral Echoes. And unlike Attunement, which does cosmic damage for their battle mages and whatnot, potential does lightning and frost damage. And last, and the one that they played on the dev stream, is the summoning subculture. This focuses on magical origin units, giving astral resonance to magical origin units, which grants them strengthen and heals 10 temporary HP whenever a spell is cast. Astral echoes can be used to increase the rank of the magical origin unit. An astral connection will give +5 morale to any magic origin unit per cultural unit in combat. They also deal only lightning damage. And all tier 3 units from Mystic are no longer mounted by default. The mounted unit is now the Spell Shield, which was already an optional cavalry, but now it is just the cavalry. There are visual variations for each subculture with the cities, and astral echoes no longer grant mana or knowledge, and they are now like a currency. So astral echo nodes are now +20 astral echoes instead of the singular one, and you gain astral echoes from completing research, picking them up off the floor, or you can use a new spell to summon new echoes on the map that becomes available after getting your second tier 1 tome. So for attunement, you can use astral echoes to cast spells once you've run out of casting points, and for summoning you can use them to level up your magical origin creatures. So that's pretty cool. So when it comes to leveling up, the bonuses have now been equalized and improved across the board, with the primary goal of helping the lower tier units stay relevant. Was it the third and final level up? It gives you +1 defense, +1 resistance, and +10% damage. And that is supposed to help them basically become a higher tier. So even if you have a tier 1 unit, if it's fully maxed out, the stats that is given it make it equivalent to a tier 3 unit. That's kind of the idea. And on that note, evolution has been changed slightly. Evolve units now evolve at legend rank instead of the champion, but they have a smaller experience requirement to level, which really synergizes well with the summoning mystic subculture. So back to the cultures, there were minor changes to the Reavers and the Dark Culture. For the Reavers, their focused aggression was changed. Ranger magic attacks deal 10% damage per stack of marked on the target. I believe that was already the case. But now, melee attacks have a 60% chance to inflict marked. This makes it so that you can already synergize with your cultural ability instead of having to build into very specific tomes to be able to inflict marked and then manipulate it. Additionally, the marksman has been improved a little bit. Their attack is now a 1 AP attack, but it only has 50% accuracy. They've been given, to help counteract that, a 3 AP button that leaves you with 1 AP, kind of like teleport on some of the tier 3 units, which allows them to aim. So if you don't have to move, if the marksman has to move, they can move and they can still, rip a shot, flip a coin. But if they don't have to move, if they're in a good position, they can use that 3 AP ability and then shoot with full accuracy. I can't help but wonder if you can really lean into Mark to kind of overcome that 50% accuracy without having to use the 3 AP button. Could be interesting. And I believe the Dragoon was also buffed, but they didn't talk at all about that. Just that it had been changed a little bit. For the Dark Culture, Cull the Weak was buffed. Physical range and magic attacks now have a 90% chance to inflict weaken, and melee attacks deal 20% damage, plus 20% damage to weakened targets and heal for 10 on hit instead of applying regeneration. I think this is a huge buff, and I am very much looking forward to testing it out in the update. Moving on to society traits, there are 2 new society traits. The Keepers of Knowledge has a bug description in the screenshot I'm showing you, but it gives allegiance with free cities that have a Whispering Stone whenever you research a spell, and gives relation with everyone when you unlock a tome, and get research income for every open border treaty that you have, and plus 10 good boy points. I don't know if that open border treaty will affect only Gaudir, or if it affects free cities, because technically you get one of them at the second level of friendship, or both. This sounds like it could be really good once, some of the numbers are revealed to us. But it's the first good boy talent for Shadow, so... Is there actually a good boy talent outside of Order? I don't think there is. So, good. But on the flip side, the Umbral Disciples is focused on the Umbral Abyss, It starts you off with the Umbral Flesh transformation, which we saw from the Umbral Dwelling, and you can construct the Altar of Marching Gloom, which was also in the Dwelling, although I didn't tell you what it was, and it gives you minus 10 alignment. So, more Evil Boy points for Shadow. And I guess this is if you want to go into the Umbral Abyss, but you don't want to deal with Umbral Dwellings, just full Crusade, full Dark Crusade. Sounds fun to me. I forgot to write these down, but going backwards a little bit, there are two new form traits, the Insectoid and the Scion. And of course, they come with new form traits that you can use on anyone. The Insectoid comes with Ceaseless Cacophony. Adjacent enemies without this trait will have a 15% chance to fumble. And my first question was, does that stack with Misfortune? Because if so, that is incredible. Absolutely fantastic, but it can be negated if you're fighting somebody who also has Ceaseless Cacophony. And the Scions have Empowered by Magic. Once per turn, when taking non-physical damage, gain strengthened for 3 turns. Non-physical is pretty broad, and by mid-game, pretty much everyone you'll be fighting will have some form of elemental damage, so I think this is probably going to be really good. And the Scions, just like the Umbral Abyss, is a callback to Age of Wonders Shadow Magic. They have returned. That's also what was played in the dev stream, and they have some very cool customization options. There is another new form trait that is an exotic beetle, but they didn't show it off, so I can't show you. Sorry. Just know that it exists. There is a new base beetle mount as well, which they ride, and hopefully it's on screen right now. So we know there are 3 new tomes, but the only one they showed us today is the new Tier 1 tome, Tome of the Tentacle. This is an Astral Shadow Dual Affinity tome, and the abilities they showed off, or the research they showed off, was Conjure Tentacle, which summons a tentacle in combat. Anywhere in combat, it can be very good. And it can inflict Constricting, which is a new debuff that immobilizes somebody and I believe deals physical damage at the end of the turn. Constricting Focus is an enchantment that gives battle mages and supports a chance to inflict Constricting. The Constrictor is a Tier 2 polearm unit that can pull people to an adjacent tile. I don't believe they actually ever showed it off, they just talked about it. And at that point, they also mentioned that there's a new restriction for creating units. Cities can now only recruit units that are of the same tier or lower than them. So the Tier 2 Constrictor, even though they could have researched it, they could not build it until they went up a city level. Additionally, the tier of summons you can do is now linked to Wizard Towers. So you cannot summon a Tier 2 unit until you have the level 1 Wizard Tower, I believe, which is the Foundation first and then level 1. So that can change some rushing strategies, but at the end of the day, I don't think this will be a huge deal. The Retaliating Growth is a combat buff that gives the units a chance to constrict on melee, unlimited retaliation, hyper awareness that cannot be flanked, and defensive masters. If you get a good, durable polearm in place, magnific. Now, one of the main features of the Eldritch Realms is the new ruler type, the Eldritch Sovereign. There is a lot to talk about here, and I'm sure there's even more that we will find out over the coming days. But the Eldritch Sovereign has a special currency, the Thralls, that can be used to cast certain rituals. These are acquired based on how many units you've killed in combat, and it accumulates between battles. So they mentioned early on you'll probably have very few Thralls. I believe they went 4 combats between not getting a Thrall. But, as more enemies come to face you, you will get more. Eventually getting one like every combat, or more, they said. You can also use these and gain them from events. There were a few that popped up. One, making people like you. Like, as you meet them, you can use 2 Thralls to get, 200 plus relations. And there was another one where they could take over a unit from a stack, and if, we wanted to run away or whatever. The Eldritch Sovereign has a mana unit upkeep. Has a mana upkeep, just like the Dragon Lord has a gold upkeep, and they have no mount and no leg slots. And supposedly they get larger as they unlock their specializations. So when you're making your Eldritch Sovereign, the choices, by the way, look absolutely phenomenal. They have a unique weapon type called a Relic, And they described its basic attack as like an artillery attack. It has, I think, 8 or 9 range. It's ridiculous. And you can choose one of 4 at the start. Now, the main thing about this is that each one will deal a specific type of damage. So, for example, the Relic of Mind deals physical damage and that cannot be blocked, and it will give you the Delirium talent. Delirium grants insanity for 1 turn, inflicts insanity for 1 turn, and 5 stacks of Sundered Defense and 5 stacks of Sundered Resistance. But that Delirium is not bound to that weapon. It is a talent for the Eldritch Sovereign that you can, pick up if you don't get this. So don't feel pressed about picking the Relic at the start. On that note, Insanity has been reworked, and it will now cause targets to prioritize attacking friendly units. It used to be that it would attack the nearest enemy, and if there wasn't a nearby enemy, they would attack a friend. Now they go after friends, which makes it much better. The Relic of Flesh deals blight damage with a chance to poison and decay, and grants Eldritch Rituals. 2 Eldritch Rituals. You can sacrifice 4 thralls for plus 200 knowledge, or you can sacrifice 1 thrall, or sacrifice 1 thrall for 50 draft for 3 turns on the target city, and the Sovereign gains this plus 10 HP. They mentioned that for a lot of these rituals, which dealt, on the tactical map, they wanted to also give just a little bit of combat stats so that people didn't feel like they weren't getting stronger, which I think is a good thing. The Relic of Havoc deals fire damage with a 90% chance to apply a random negative status effect, and grants the Eldritch Phase, which is a 0 AP, a free action teleport for 4 tiles. That's it's pretty good. The Lost Wizards have that, so I just copy-pasted that. Relic of the Cosmos deals cosmic damage, shocker, and gives the ritual to summon an Astral Wisp, which also gives plus 5 HP and plus 1 resistance to the Sovereign. This is ultimately what they ended up picking for the dev stream. We saw one more thing from the Tome of Tentacles, and that is the Tendril Labyrinth, which is a city building. It grants plus 10 gold and plus 10 city stability, and will spawn 3 tentacles in combat if the city is attacked. They also showed off the Conjure Astral Ward, which is a new combat summon for the Summoners. I believe they mentioned that all subculture has one of these. And you spawn the ward and it can link to an ally to take damage for it. I typically don't like abilities like that, but hey, the Mystic Culture is squishy. It can help them out. You can also see on this screenshot, the outside has the brand new Tentacle UI. It's all about tentacles. We're making Slaanesh proud. All Eldritch Sovereigns will have Eldritch Mind Control at the start of the game for combat, and apparently this can be upgraded to Dominate in their unique tree. So instead of a 1-turn Mind Control, it's a Dominate. Take it over. Sounds good to me? So in one of their level ups, they showed off a few of the choices in the unique Eldritch Sovereign tree, speaking of. Desperate Anguish is a 3 AP, 90% chance to stun, and minus 30 morale. Upon failure, inflicts minus 15 morale. That's very strong, just you don't get a turn. The Eldritch Influencer Governor skill grants Imperium and casting points. Arguably, could be one of the best in the game. And I believe it said Eldritch Influence 1, so you can get a second one of those. I guess it's in place of the Ancient Governor that the Dragon Lord had. But more Imperium is more good. The Phantasm Ritual is a ritual to deal 20% HP damage to a stack. This is on the world map. And minus 3 status resist until end of next combat, and gives plus 10% magic damage to the Sovereign. That is incredible. I believe I also saw grayed out Mass Phantasmal Ritual. So, this could get better. The Quickening Ritual is a ritual to give a target army, your army, very fast movement, which I believe is 48 tiles, in the world and in combat for 2 world map turns. Also gives the Sovereign plus 20% evasion against physical, ranged, and magical attacks. Imagine wombo-combing that with the Wind Barrier Ring. My oh my, that's almost untouchable. Almost. The Enthrall Population Ritual gives 3 thralls at the cost of 1 population. And this can be used on vassals. So, a good reason to keep just the basic vassal around so you can force it to pump out thralls. Some of the pre-existing tomes got a few changes and tweaks. The Tome of the Rock, the Rock Blast, has been modified into basically a charge attack. It now will interrupt defensive stance and retaliations, which is quite a significant buff for the early game. And a new weapon enchantment, Obsidian Weapons, has been added to the tome, which gives melee and physical range attacks a 60% chance to imply bleeding, which apparently was a hero skill given by this tome, but is now an enchantment you can use as well. Tome of the Horde has been given Unleash the Hounds. This was moved from the Tome of Devastation, and I'm assuming it doesn't have 6 fortification damage still, but they never moused over it, so if it does, use it before it gets nerfed. And in place of Unleash the Hounds in the Tome of Devastation is the new Monstrous Rebirth. This can transform a low-tier unit into a Warbreed during combat, but the unit will die at the end of combat. I suppose, in my mind, the biggest use for this would be if you have for example, the Assistant Golem summon at the start of combat. Just a random throwaway summon. I wonder if you can, because it says tier 1, 2, or 3, so can you summon Elemental that has like a 3-turn, existence, and then use this on top of it to give you a permanent unit for the combat? Did I crack the code? Now, upon reaching level 4, you get a signature skill. For the Eldritch Sovereign, all 4 signature skills are unique to the Sovereign Ruler type, and this is the choice of your first specialization, and one of the later signature skills delves even deeper to what you choose here. The Madcaster is an astral chaos dual affinity that grants Chaos Pulse, which is a 1-hex radius YOLO bomb. It does a whole bunch of different stuff, can do a whole bunch of different stuff. It's meant to be, chaotic and random. And Expert Channeling as a passive, which makes spells cost 30% less mana, basically across the board. It sounds incredible. Mindbreaker is an Order Shadow dual affinity, which grants Eldritch Truth a 3 AP ability to inflict madness until the end of combat, or dispelled, which causes insanity, and they take 5 physical damage at the end of the turn. If it fails, it inflicts insanity for 1 turn instead. It also grants Eldritch Breach, which is a passive that gives you, or allows you to ignore 3 status resistance on everything, which sounds absolutely incredible. It synergizes so well with everything the Eldritch Sovereign appears to want to do. Like, my initial impression of the Eldritch Sovereign is the Eldritch Sovereign is not here to do damage. It can, but it's here to just cause absolute chaos and control the battlefield. And I'm here for it. The Fleshweaver is the one that they went with in the dev stream. It is a Shadow Nature dual affinity that grants Possession, which is a free action that gives the friendly unit Empower for 2 turns, and Resurgence. Empower is plus 40% damage. Empower is plus 40% damage and Resurgence. And the reason it gives you Resurgence is because it will die after 2 turns. Also gives the Flesh Weave, which is a passive that conjures 2 fleshlings at the start of combat, and those fleshlings are basically banelings. Their goal is to roll in there and explode and win for you. And you can use Empower on them. They did that during the stream. Once you select your level 4 specialization, the Sovereign's mana upkeep is increased by 10. So I don't have any images for these, but there are 3 things that they kind of mentioned in the greater scheme of stuff. And the first one is there are 4 new Pantheon unlocks, which are all starting weapons for Gaudir with Eldritch-related themes. I believe the one that they talked about was there's like a Demon Hunter bow, which sounds cool. They confirmed, once again, that more content is coming, but the quote is, "We can't call it DLC." So hopefully there's more DLC. I'm assuming there will be more DLC. It all depends. And lastly, a little bit of bad news. The Pantheon has a max of 50 characters. So, eventually we're going to get full. And that max cannot be increased. Is a hard cap as far on a technological perspective. So I believe it is because of consoles. Just blame them. So 50 is what we're stuck with. Now, in the final 30 minutes or so of the stream, they wandered into the Umbral Abyss for the first time. So we got to see what exactly the new race was and a few of its units. So the new race type is Umbral Demon. An Umbral Demon that has +2 defense, -2 fire resistance, -2 spirit resistance, immunity to Umbral Malady, which makes sense, and Chaos Eater. Chaos Eater is a passive that at the end of the turn consumes a negative debuff and heals you for 10 HP, which just sounds incredible. So the Umbral Demons we got to see was the Splitterling, which is a tier 1 basic chaff thing, and they mentioned the way you're going to see Splitterlings is not really just a Splitterling wandering, wobbling about. It'll be because a lot of the demons have methods to spawn Splitterlings. So the most common Umbral Demon is the Will Thief. This is a tier 2 brawler unit. It hits you a bunch, and it has the Umbral Drain? Flash. Sorry, I can't read this screen. I can't read the screenshot. With the Umbral Lash, it attaches an Umbral Drain, there we go, to the target, which deals 10 frost damage, and the target will lose a positive status effect, and the Will Thief will heal for 10 and steals the removed positive status effect. Wow, that's strong. So it heals, it removes negative debuffs and heals for 10, and then it steals positive buffs and heals for 10. That doesn't sound like it's going to be annoying at all. The next one we got to see is the Umbral Juggernaut, which is a tier 3 charging unit that displaces and replaces, just like the Warbreed. When it walks around, it leaves Umbral Taint on the floor, which whenever something walks through it or ends its turn in it, they lose 5 morale, and they become decaying for 3 turns. Units that are immune to Umbral Malady are immune to the Umbral Taint, so it's not going to be effective in the Umbral Abyss, but hey, if you're fighting someone, pretty good. And should the Umbral Juggernaut fall, it creates 3 Splitterlings when they die. And last but not least is the Umbral Abductor. This is a tier 3 mythic unit that eats people. After it has eaten somebody, it gains Satiated Rift. It cannot use its Abduct anymore, it is immobilized, it summons a Splitterling adjacent to this unit at the end of the turn, and it heals for 10% of its max hit point as temporary hit points at the end of the turn. I don't know if the thing inside of it is slowly dying, because when you kill the Abductor, it drops for 8. My guess would be yes, but maybe not. It could just be like sealed, like, the Progenitor Golem. Quite a comparison, comparing the Progenitor Golem to Abductor, but hey, they're both mythic units. And the developers mentioned, it was Louise mentioned, that if you see an Abductor, get rid of it. Focus it. Make it go away. And can't blame him. Cannot blame him. So that was the dev diary and everything that I noticed in the dev stream. As always, you can find links to both in the description down below if you are interested. The channel is going to continue to be a little quiet, but hopefully I'll be back next week, mid next week, sometime, full-blown daily content. Tis the plan. Thank you all for hanging out. Feel free to let me know what you think about the upcoming DLC, and if you have any suggestions for the polls. My poll's pretty much already done, but hey, I'm always taking good ideas. Thank you to the patrons and the channel members who support the channel. I greatly appreciate you. If you'd like to stay up to Happy Channel, feel free to join the Discord description down below, and I will see you in the Eldritch Realms on June 18th. Actually, I'll see you in the next dev diary. That's next week. That's much closer. See you then. Bye.